Imagine a road that stretched for thousands of miles, crossing scorching deserts, towering mountains, and bustling cities. It wasn't just a path for merchants. It was the greatest highway of ideas, cultures, religions, and discoveries the world had ever seen. This was the Silk Road, an ancient network of trade routes that connected east and west for over 1,000 years. Along these roads traveled silk, spices, gold, precious stones, paper, and porcelain. But even more valuable than goods were the stories, inventions, and knowledge that journeyed from one civilization to another. Empires rose, fortunes were made, and history itself was transformed because of the Silk Road. Among the many travelers who dared to cross this extraordinary route, one name became legendary: Marco Polo. His remarkable journey from Venice to the court of Kublai Khan would introduce Europe to the wonders of Asia and inspire generations of explorers. But before we follow Marco Polo's footsteps, we must first understand the incredible world of the Silk Road, a place where every caravan carried not only treasures, but also the promise of adventure, discovery, and the meeting of civilizations. So, let's travel back to the 13th century and begin an unforgettable journey along the world's most famous trade route, the legendary Silk Road. The Silk Road was never a single road. Instead, it was a vast network of trade routes that connected Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe for more than 15 centuries. Stretching over 6,000 kilometers, these routes crossed some of the most challenging landscapes on Earth, including the towering Pamir Mountains, the vast Gobi Desert, and the endless sands of Central Asia. Yet, despite these obstacles, millions of people traveled these paths, carrying not only goods but also ideas, beliefs, inventions, languages, and cultures. The Silk Site Road became one of the greatest forces in shaping human civilization. The story of the Silk Road began during China's Han Dynasty around the 2nd century BC. At that time, Chinese rulers wanted to establish diplomatic and commercial relations with lands far to the west. Explorers were sent beyond China's borders, opening routes that would eventually connect the empire with Central Asia, Persia, India, Arabia, and Europe. What started as a search for allies soon developed into the world's greatest trading network. The route received its famous name because silk was among China's most valuable exports. Chinese silk was unlike anything people in Europe or the Middle East had ever seen. It was smooth, light, colorful, and incredibly luxurious. Kings, queens, emperors, and wealthy merchants considered silk a symbol of power and prestige. For centuries, China carefully guarded the secret of silk production. Anyone caught revealing the techniques of raising silkworms or weaving silk could face severe punishment. This secrecy made Chinese silk even more valuable across the ancient world. But silk was only one of countless treasures transported along these routes. Merchants carried spices such as cinnamon, cloves, pepper, and cardamom, which were prized for preserving food and enhancing its flavor. Precious stones like jade, turquoise, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires changed hands in busy markets. Fine porcelain from China amazed buyers with its beauty and craftsmanship. Paper, invented in China, gradually spread westward, revolutionizing education, government, and literature. Glassware from the Roman Empire traveled east, while horses from Central Asia became highly sought after by Chinese emperors. Gold, silver, ivory, perfumes, carpets, cotton, tea, medicinal herbs, and exotic animals all found their way across continents through the Silk Road. The people who traveled the Silk Road came from many different cultures. Chinese merchants loaded their caravans with silk and porcelain. Persian traders carried carpets, jewelry, and spices. Indian merchants transported cotton textiles and precious gems. Arab traders brought perfumes, incense, and scientific knowledge. Byzantine and European merchants introduced glass, wine, and metal goods. Every marketplace became a meeting point where languages mixed, traditions blended, and friendships formed across cultures. Traveling along the Silk Road was anything but easy. Most merchants joined large caravans consisting of hundreds of camels, horses, donkeys, and guards. Camels were especially valuable because they could survive for days without water while carrying heavy loads through scorching deserts. A single caravan often stretched for hundreds of meters. Each journey required careful planning, as travelers had to know where the next oasis or trading town was located. The deserts presented constant danger. During the day, temperatures could become unbearably hot, while nights were freezing cold. Powerful sandstorms could erase trails within minutes, making it easy for travelers to become lost. Water was scarce, and supplies had to be carefully managed. Many travelers believed the deserts were haunted because strange echoes carried through the wind, creating mysterious sounds that frightened even experienced merchants. Mountain ranges posed another challenge. Crossing the Pamir Mountains or the Tian Shan required climbing steep, icy paths where avalanches and landslides were common. Thin mountain air made breathing difficult, while freezing temperatures threatened both people and animals. Yet despite these hardships, trade continued because the rewards were often worth the risks. Bandits were another constant threat. Valuable caravans attracted thieves who waited along isolated sections of the route. Merchants often hired armed guards or traveled together in large groups for protection. Powerful kingdoms also built forts and military outposts to secure important trade routes, understanding that commerce brought prosperity to their lands. Along the Silk Road, magnificent cities flourished. Samarkand, located in present-day Uzbekistan, became one of the world's richest trading centers. Its bustling markets overflowed with silk, spices, jewels, carpets, and exotic goods from distant lands. Bukhara became famous for its scholars, beautiful architecture, and vibrant marketplaces. Kashgar served as a crossroads where Eastern and Western merchants exchanged products and information. Merv, Tashkent, Xi'an, and many other cities became thriving centers of commerce, education, and cultural exchange. These cities were more than trading hubs. They were places where travelers shared stories, learned new languages, and exchanged knowledge. Scholars translated books from one language into another, preserving important scientific and philosophical works. Doctors discussed medical treatments. Engineers shared construction techniques. Artists introduced new painting styles, music, and architecture. Every caravan carried not only merchandise, but also ideas that shaped civilizations. Religion also spread along the Silk Road. Buddhism traveled from India into China, Korea, and Japan through monks who journeyed alongside merchants. Islam expanded across Central Asia and beyond through traders and scholars. Christianity reached parts of Asia through missionaries following the same routes. Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, and other faiths also found new communities along the trade network. Rather than being separated by borders, many cultures encountered one another through peaceful trade and conversation. The Silk Road also transformed science and technology. Papermaking spread westward from China, eventually reaching the Islamic world and Europe. The compass, printing techniques, and gunpowder gradually traveled beyond China, changing navigation, communication, and warfare. Mathematical knowledge from India reached the Middle East and Europe, while astronomical discoveries were shared across civilizations. Without the Silk Road, many of history's greatest innovations might have taken centuries longer to spread. However, not everything carried along the Silk Road benefited humanity. Diseases also traveled these busy routes. The most devastating example was the Black Death during the 14th century. Fleas carried by rats traveling with merchant caravans helped spread the plague across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Millions of people lost their lives, reminding the world that increased connections could also bring unexpected dangers. During the 13th century, the Silk Road entered one of its greatest periods under the Mongol Empire. Led first by Genghis Khan and later by his descendants, the Mongols controlled an enormous territory stretching from Eastern Europe to China. Although they conquered many lands through warfare, they also created relative peace across much of the Silk Road. a period often called the Pax Mongolica. Merchants could travel more safely than before, protected by Mongol laws and military patrols. Trade flourished as never before. It was during this remarkable era that a young Venetian merchant named Marco Polo began his legendary journey. Born into a family of merchants, Marco dreamed of exploring distant lands beyond Europe's horizons. Along with his father Niccolo and Uncle Maffeo, he set out from Venice in 1271. Their destination was the magnificent court of Kublai Khan, the powerful ruler of the Mongol Empire and grandson of Genghis Khan. Marco Polo's journey would take him across deserts, mountains, rivers, and bustling trading cities connected by the Silk Road. He encountered cultures unlike anything he had ever imagined. He saw enormous cities with paved streets, advanced postal systems, paper money, beautiful palaces, and remarkable engineering achievements. His travels would last nearly 24 years, making him one of history's most famous explorers. Although some modern historians debate certain details in Marco Polo's accounts, there is little doubt that his writings opened Europe's imagination to the wonders of Asia. His book, The Travels of Marco Polo, introduced readers to lands filled with astonishing wealth, advanced civilizations, and extraordinary customs. For many Europeans, it became their first detailed glimpse into the vast world beyond their own continent. The Silk Road eventually declined during the 15th century. The rise of maritime trade allowed merchants to transport larger quantities of goods by sea more efficiently than by land. Political instability, changing empires, and new ocean routes reduced the importance of the ancient caravan paths. Yet the legacy of the Silk Road never disappeared. Today, archaeologists continue uncovering ancient cities, temples, manuscripts, and artifacts that reveal the incredible history of this vast network. UNESCO recognizes many Silk Road sites as part of humanity's shared cultural heritage. Museums around the world display treasures that once traveled these famous routes, reminding us of an era when people from vastly different cultures met not through conflict, but through curiosity, commerce, and cooperation. The Silk Road teaches us that civilizations grow stronger when they exchange knowledge instead of building walls. It shows how trade can become a bridge between cultures, allowing ideas, inventions, and understanding to travel farther than armies ever could. Long before airplanes, railways, or the internet connected the world, the Silk Road united continents through courage, determination, and the universal desire to explore. And it was upon these legendary roads that Marco Polo would begin the greatest adventure of his life, an adventure that would forever change how East and West saw one another and inspire generations of explorers to follow the unknown paths beyond the horizon. As our journey along the legendary Silk Road comes to an end, we are reminded that it was far more than a network of ancient trade routes. It was a bridge between civilizations, where people from different cultures, languages, and beliefs exchanged not only valuable goods, but also knowledge, innovation, friendship. The Silk Road shaped the course of history and proved that exploration and curiosity have the power to unite the world. The incredible travels of Marco Polo opened Europe's eyes to the wonders of Asia and inspired countless explorers to seek new horizons. His story continues to remind us that every great adventure begins with the courage to take the first step into the unknown. If you enjoyed learning about the fascinating history of the Silk Road and Marco Polo's extraordinary journey, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next adventure into history. Share this video with friends and family who love discovering the stories that change the world. Thank you for watching. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, history is filled with incredible journeys waiting to be discovered.